The word of the Lord in 2 Kings chapter 13 and verse 19. I think that so you won't sleep on me, you've been sitting kind of long and I've been talking for a while. Why don't you stand for the reading of the word? Look over at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I'm going to keep you awake for the rest of this service. Second Kings 13 and 19. And he said, open the window eastward. And he opened it. Then Elisha said, shoot. And he shot. And he said, the arrow of the Lord's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria. For thou shalt smite the Syrians in Aphek till you have consumed them. And he said, take the arrows. And he took them. And he said unto the king of Israel, smite upon the ground. And he smote thrice and stayed. And the man of God was wroth or angry with him, and said, you should have smitten 5 or 6 times, then hadst thou smitten Syria till thou hadst consumed it. Whereas now thou shalt smite Syria but thrice, but 3 times. I read from the King James Version of the Bible. Will you look toward your neighbor and say, smite out your destiny today. Will you say it to the neighbor on the other side? Smite out your destiny today. You may be seated. If we are honest, some of us would admit having apprehensions regarding the way God dealt with King Joash in this text. As far as we can see, Joash had complied with each and every direction that was given to him by the prophet Elisha. When he was directed to shoot in 2 Kings 13 and 17, the symbolic arrow of the Lord's deliverance, he shot the arrow. And because he had done so, he was promised victory over the Syrians in one city. The city of Aphek. For shooting an arrow, the man of God said, now you're going to defeat the Syrians in the city of Aphek until you have consumed them. And then when he was told in 2 Kings 13 and 18 to take several arrows in his hand and to hit the ground with those arrows, he did so not only one time, but he did so 3 times. No mention had been made regarding how many times he was to hit the ground. He had understood that he could do so more than once, and he did so more than one time. He hit the ground 3 times with the arrows. Why would God withhold his blessings? Why would the man of God become so angry when he had done what he had been told to do? It almost seems unjust that he'd be limited to only 3 victories in battle, especially when he had not been told all of the details of his symbolic act. He had obeyed. He had done what the man of God told him to do. Joash obeyed. But let's examine his attitude. The Bible says in 2 Chronicles 25 and 2 that one man did that which was right in the sight of God, but not with a perfect heart. And so many people are that way today. They go through righteous motions, but their hearts are not in what they are doing. But God is never pleased when we do anything for him and our hearts are not in it. The Bible says that man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. Work on your heart. Work on your attitude. Jesus in the book of Matthew chapter 22 tells the story of a king who held a marriage feast for his son and invited many people to participate. But verse 5, Matthew 22:5 says that they made light of his invitation and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. When they got the invitation from the king, they said, no big deal. I'm going on about my business. Well, Joash obviously made light of his moment of blessing. His attitude was unenthusiastic. There was a lack of aggressive obedience. He minimized his response to God rather than maximizing his response to God. Why is it that when we come to God, we are inclined to minimize rather than maximize? Can I do this and still be saved? Because I want to win. So many people seek God's minimum standards. So Joash did the minimum. Nonchalantly, carelessly. Well, Joash was the king. Maybe he felt that it was improper for a prophet to be telling him, the king, what he was to do anyway. But do you know God does give his word to men of God who are in turn responsible for passing it on unto them? Elisha was at this time dying. Joash may have felt that because of his advanced age that he was senile and disoriented. But knowing Elisha, Joash should never have taken that attitude. He may have understood, he may not have understood how beating arrows on the ground could have anything to do with victory in battle. But even though he did not understand, he should have aggressively obeyed the man of God. In 2 Kings chapter 5, Naaman did not understand how dipping in Jordan 7 times could bring about his healing. But it was only when he went down to Jordan and dipped 7 times that God gave him healing. He did not understand, but he obeyed. Even though Joash did not understand what the man of God was telling him to do, he should have aggressively obeyed. Well, you may assert that, brother preacher, Joash was not treated justly because the man of God could have told him how many times he could hit the ground. But my response is that he should have asked, is there a limit? When do I have to stop? He should have just began to bombard the ground with the arrows until the prophet said, that's him enough. You can stop now. He had already learned that by shooting one arrow, he was able to take an entire city. But because of his attitude,